friends! Welcome back. New here? Hi! My name is Shayna, and in my little corner of the internet, we talk about spooky history of all kinds. If that sounds like something you're interested in, be sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell because I am here for you every Wednesday. Last week, we made a different video. It was a get to know me Q&A type video where you guys asked me questions on my Instagram. If that's something you might be interested in, I'll be sure to link it up here for you. I'm super excited about today's video, so without further ado, let's get into it. So we all know that old movie, Sleeping Beauty, right? What if I told you that there was a Sleeping Beauty in real life? Would you believe me? Off the coast of the eastern part of Sweden, there is a little isolated island called Okno, and there lived a 14-year-old girl named Karolina Olsson. She lived there with her parents and 5 brothers. She was born on October 29th of 1861, and she was the second oldest. And her family was a farming and fishing type family. Now, Karolina grew up like most girls in that time period, where she stayed at home and her mother taught her how to read and write. She would eventually start school in fall of 1875. Not long after, on February 18th of 1876, Karolina was on her way home when she ended up falling and hitting her head. Now, it's unclear on what happened, how she got hurt. There were rumors that she fell into an icy river and someone pulled her out in the nick of time. Then there was the other story where she just fell and hit her head on like a rock or something hard. Either way, she came home stating that her head hurt and that she was developing a toothache. Her father ended up looking her over to make sure she was okay, and he thought she was fine. He saw some scrapes and bruises, but that was really it. He didn't see anything seriously wrong with her. Not long later, she would complain that her toothache was getting worse, and it was causing her to get a really severe headache, which was not at all common for Karolina to experience. So her parents were really worried about her. But since they were isolated, there was no doctor around, so they had to kind of wait it out and see if she got better. At this time period, witchcraft was popular. So if something went wrong, people would just assume that a witch put a curse on you. And at first, her parents assumed witchcraft, but they really couldn't be sure. So they had Karolina go to bed and hope that she would feel better by the next morning. Well, the next morning came and gone, and Karolina didn't wake up. Now, her parents were very concerned for her, and they tried to wake her up. At first, they tried the normal way, the normal way you would wake up a person by, I don't know, making a loud noise or shaking them or something, trying to get them to wake up. But that didn't work, so they got nervous. So they wanted to see if inflicting pain would cause her to wake up. They would try things like putting a light flame up against her skin to see if that would wake her up. They would also prick her with little needles. And when that didn't work, they would put the little needles under the nails. Just doesn't sound fun. But she didn't even flinch when they did all this stuff. She just kept sleeping. Her parents ended up calling for a doctor to come to the island and see what was wrong with their daughter. Until the doctor was able to make it to the island, though, they decided they were going to force feed her milk with sugar twice daily. After a few days had passed, the doctor was finally able to get on the island to check her out and see what was going on. He could see that she was in some sort of coma, but he didn't really know why. They continued to feed her this sweetened milk twice a day and just cared for her, hoping that she would just wake up. But sadly, a year would eventually pass. And during that time, more medical professionals would come and visit the family home. And they really wanted to get the medical community to join together and see what was going on and why this young girl wasn't waking up. What's really strange is that the doctors that came to visit notated that her hair nor her nails were growing, and it appeared that she wasn't losing any weight, even though she was only drinking 2 glasses of milk a day. She was in pretty good shape. Even her muscles seemed good and didn't appear to have atrophied at all. Sadly, 6 years would pass, and her family decided that she needed to be hospitalized. So they ended up taking her to a hospital in 1882. And they sent her to this city in Sweden. I'll put the name on the screen, but I don't know how to pronounce it. And while she was there, doctors tried many different things to try to wake her up. They even attempted to revive her by using electric shock therapy, but she had no reaction to this. They eventually just gave up and decided to diagnose her with dementia paralytica, which is usually a general paralysis of the insane. But honestly, they had no idea what was wrong with her. They were just guessing at this point. They finally just told the family it's best to just let her be and see if she wakes up. Now, what many found interesting, that while Karolina was sleeping, she was known to moan, toss and turn, or even sleepwalk and mumble, but she never really fully woke up. And the only time she showed any sort of reaction to the outside world was in 1907, when she seemed to cry when her family told her that her brother passed away, but she was still in a comatose state, so very strange. Now, her parents ended up hiring a full-time maid to take care of her. Now, the maid noted the same thing that the doctors did, was that her hair always seemed clean and never appeared to grow, and her nails never appeared to grow either. This is what I found funny. Sometimes the maid would bring candies into Karolina's room for the maid to snack on, and she would leave the room and come back and notice that some of the candies were gone. Which did make the maid suspicious. I mean, that's understandable. But still, Karolina wouldn't wake up despite what anyone did to her. And as time went on, people were also starting to notice that she wasn't really aging. She looked a lot younger than she should have. They speculated that her metabolism was possibly slowing down, and that's what was causing her to not age as quickly, but they were unsure. Then finally, after sleeping for a long 32 years, yeah, you heard me right, 32 years, she randomly woke up on April 3rd of 1908. She sat up in bed and just began crying. Now, the maid came in assuming it was one of her sleepwalking episodes, but was amazed when she realized that Karolina was awake and alert. Her family was immediately called and they came over right away. But when they got there, she didn't recognize any of them because they'd grown up. She ended up not really speaking for a few days and appeared to be in pain when she was near any sunlight. She claimed to not remember anything from the time she went to sleep until the time she woke up, except for some memories of dreams and nightmares. But the doctors examined her and were amazed that she had no side effects despite being bedridden for decades. And although she was in her 40s, she looked like she was in her 20s. And then later, psychologists would examine her and said she was perfectly normal. She had all of her cognitive abilities and intelligence. And the only thing that was really difficult for her was adjusting to the outside world, because so much had changed in the 32 years that she was asleep. People started calling her the Sleeper of Okno. But it wasn't long when skeptics started coming forward, and they were really just confused on how she was able to survive decades on being fed sweetened milk twice a day and come out of it without any effects, just perfectly fine. One rumor was that her family was in on it, that they were just trying to hide her from the outside world for some reason. But a psychiatrist believed that she just suffered from some deep psychosis state rather than a full hibernation. But no one could figure out why she looked so young. But despite everything, she ended up living a normal life until she died in 1950 at the age of 88. And she always insisted that what she went through was true, but no one really knows what happened. Now, there were similar cases where young girls would fall asleep and not wake up for months, and they call it the Klein-Levin syndrome, I think is how they pronounce it, also known as Sleeping Beauty syndrome. But medical professionals don't understand how or why it happens, but just that it does. Oh man, I heard this story for the first time the other day and I was like, what? Do you guys believe Karolina's story? I mean, I believe it's possible because, you know, you hear of people being in comas for years and then waking up, but I don't really know how that whole thing works. I don't think she could have faked being asleep for 32 years. That's a long time, especially for a young girl starting out. It's a long time for her to keep up that ruse. Man, if I slept for 32 years, I would never want to go to sleep again. I'd be terrified that I'd never wake up. It's a very long time. What I found interesting was that her hair and nails never grew. It's kind of like she was frozen in time, you know? Kind of makes me wonder if someone came in and trimmed her hair and nails and just never told anybody about it. But what also confuses me is that she looked like she was in her 20s when she was in her 40s. Which honestly, they say that, you know, I guess wrinkles and stuff as you get older is probably because of all the facial expressions you make every day, kind of stretches your skin out, I guess. And if she's not making those expressions every day, not stretching her face in different ways, maybe that's why she looked younger, because she was just sleeping all the time. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? I kind of feel like I sound crazy, but I'm hoping that makes sense. But I just thought this story was wild, and I wanted to share it with you guys and see what you guys thought, and let me know what your guys' opinions are. But don't forget to subscribe if you're not already, guys, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. I will see you guys next Wednesday. Bye!